So we're passing the front of the main house over to the lodge, and we're about to see the new pottery building come into view, tucked in behind the lodge, and nestled opposite the new plant room, which serves the ground source heat pump. So that we have this new pair of buildings which frame the route through into the garden here. So Bell House had been operating for a few years already when they realised that they had this fantastic facility in the 1767 original building, but it was all rather precious, and it would be very useful to have a space that was a bit more rough and ready, and we could do mucky activities and so on. Chief among them, Pottery, which some of the trustees had really fantastic experiences seeing pottery as transformative.
So when you first saw the site, what did you see as the potentials of this particular area?
So this was an area with huge potential because of all of Bell House. It was probably the one forgotten or really seriously underused part of the site. A couple of years ago, there was a 9-foot brick wall all the way across that portion of the junction to the garden, which meant that you didn't have this visual connection as you arrived at the house with the garden. On the other hand, the site itself was a slightly damp, green bit of tarmac really, which as open land felt really quite small, but now that you see it as this wonderful new building, there's really a lot of space. Slightly peculiar orientation and shape, but we've been able to really use that in the character of the building. Here's a model of the pottery in place, with Bell House itself here, the lodge beside it, and this is the pottery tucked into what had been a slightly forgotten part of the front drive. And the organisation of the building is that we've made this lovely, generous, simple, rectangular hall space for all the activities to carry out. And then where we had this slightly more awkward geometry, we've packed in storage spaces, toilet and kitchenette and so on. This will be the porch for the way in. There's a small entrance area here, and then you'll pop through into this fantastic new space with that great big window over onto the garden. So when the pottery is up and running in a couple of months' time, there will be 8 wheels arranged around the outside of the space. So everybody has a view from their wheel, and a fantastic, great big shared table in the middle for whacking down big lumps of clay and the slab making workshops as well. And tucked away will be the clay store, the work in progress store, the kilns and so on in the adjacent room.
What were the guiding principles behind the build?
So everything about this building is driven by low energy, both in use but also in the materials that are used in the construction of the building as well. So the reason why you see this beautiful Douglas fir timber frame, and only that, and not lots of steel everywhere, which you might have seen in most buildings, is because steel is very high in body carbon, so there's an awful lot of energy that it takes to make steel. In fact, by changing to timber, we have saved over 4 tonnes of carbon. So before we even think about how we're going to heat the building, we make sure that any energy we put into the building is going to go as far as possible, and that means having an envelope, the fabric, which is really high performing. So we have triple glazed windows, we have extra thick insulation in the walls, and the other thing that's really important is the airtight. Also, are making full use of the ground source heat pump system, which was installed in Bell House over the winter a couple of years ago. The garden has 10 boreholes in it, which are all about 200 metres deep, with 200 metres deep, so really seriously deep boreholes. They have tubing that carries a cooling fluid in it. they all gather at a manifold that then gets served them to the plant room, where there is a heat pump and some thermal stores. And by using the low grade warmth that we have in the ground all year round, we're able to save a huge amount of energy. Whereas gas boilers make very hot water for our central heating systems and use small metal radiators, we use the entire floor in here as our heat emitter. We've saved more than 2/3 of the energy that would otherwise be needed to heat the house. The other thing that we have is an array of photovoltaic panels on the roof, so solar panels, which will generate up to 10 kilowatts of power for the student. Rather than imagining this as a roof that has photovoltaics sat on top of it, we're going to take this roof and make the whole thing photovoltaics.
Oh,
so they run from ridge to eaves, and very nearly from side to side. There is a piece of kit in one of these back rooms which takes all the stale warm air out of places like the kitchenette and at high level in this room, and passes it over a heat exchanger with the fresh air coming in. By doing that, even in the winter, it means that the air that we're throwing out, the stale air we're throwing out, we've actually saved about 97% of the heat, the energy. So once we've got this to a sensible temperature, it's very low demand to then keep it comfortable.
So when people first walk into the project, it's almost finished now, what do you want them to think and feel about the building when they first come in?
Well, when they first come in, happily it will be a much calmer place than we're seeing now in this halfway through the build stage. They will immediately be struck by the natural materials and the even light that's throughout the space, and a sense of calm, I think. Here we can see the new gateway, which is made from Corten steel. That steel which is already rusted to protect itself with a patina. And they will form this direct route. They'll be open on open days and so on, but they allow glimpses through from all the way from the driveway and the gates as you come into Bell House from the street, glimpses through into the garden, the wonderful kitchen garden here. So in a few years' time, it would be wonderful to come and see the Pottery in full flight, busy all day, every day, and into the evenings, full of a diverse range of people. It to be just part of the life and the liveliness of Bell House will be wonderful, and we know that it's still going to be a superb space and in great shape because we've invested in a really good quality design, and we know it's going to last well.